Awaken your shadow. The truth sets some people free. It offends everyone else. By Seth, the Red Neo, Czerepak.
Introduction. Your heart knows the truth. The only thing that burns in hell is the part of you that won't let go of your life, your memories, your attachments. They burn them all away, but they're not punishing you, they're freeing your soul. If you're frightened of dying and you're holding on, you'll see devils tearing your life away. If you've made your peace, then the devils are really angels, freeing you from the earth. Meister Eckhart. There are parts of us that are still asleep. When they awaken, they bring their dreams with them. Those dreams become part of our reality, and our world is never the same. Seth Czerepak. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung.
New header, born whole, made broken. Are you happy? The question hung like a lead balloon as I prepared to construct a cleverly articulated answer for my therapist. Then something stopped me. No, I choked. Brian's eyes burned with fierce compassion as he looked at me, waiting for my usual rationalization. Okay, he said. I fought back tears as I unloaded the details of my recent crucible. I just had my heart shattered like a glass test tube by a woman who had been in love with me since we were kids. She'd had a crush since the start, but I was 6 years older, so it was always weird. We reconnected when I was 26, just after my second spiritual awakening, when I became a born-again Christian. I'd made almost every mistake a young man in love could have made. After asking her to marry me, I paid off her post-divorce debts, gave her access to my bank account, credit cards, apartment, and of course, the deepest fears and desires of my heart. Less than a year later, my 880 credit score was ruined. I'd gone several months without a steady income. Hard to be productive when someone is screaming at you and throwing lamps at your head until 3 a.m., and I'd just found out she was cheating on me with an ex-boyfriend. When I confronted her, she cried her way into staying one more night at my apartment. I woke up on a bed in flames, strategically surrounded by a border of broken glass, and with every piece of my living room furniture blocking the bedroom door. The grand finale came later that night when she returned and let herself into my apartment while I was out getting bandages for my feet and removing her from my bank accounts and credit cards. When I came home, she had called the police, claiming that her husband had taken her access to the family accounts and thrown her out of their apartment. She then attacked me, biting me in the chest, leg, and neck, punching me at least 100 times in the face and kicking in my bedroom and bathroom doors where I'd momentarily escaped. But there was a silver lining, 2, actually. New subheader, God watches over fools. First, Florida law required the police to arrest someone anytime they got a call claiming domestic violence. Second, I had been raised that a man never puts his hands on a woman, not for any reason. So when the police arrived, one look at my face and the bite marks on my body, and it was obvious who to arrest. That's exactly what happened, and I was left sweeping up the pieces of my broken heart and life. Part of my post-heartbreak cleanup involved hiring a counselor. I was out of reasons not to. I had broken my life, and no amount of intellectual denial or rationalization could put it back together. So there I sat in my first session, completely humbled by the simple question, "Are you happy?" My honest response to that question was the beginning of my journey to discovering and awakening my shadow self. What I didn't know then was that the part of me that had wrecked my life was the same part of me that would later bring me inner peace, happiness, prosperity, and everything else I'd always wanted, but it started with realizing that I didn't need fixing. In fact, I would soon discover that all my recent problems had come from believing that I was broken. It's the same with you and everyone who reads this book. There's nothing wrong with you. All your suffering is the result of believing that there is. If this sounds too good or too simple to be true, I assure you that reading this book will convince you otherwise. I'm just as certain of this as I am that the sun is going to come up tomorrow morning. This is something every other personal growth author gets 100% wrong, either by omitting this truth, overcomplicating it, or misunderstanding it themselves. New subheader: We are born whole. All possibility and potential for living our authentic life is embedded into our physical and spiritual DNA from the start. Our brokenness is simply the baggage we pick up as we go through life. The human brain is a learning machine. Some of what we learn is useful and beneficial all throughout our life. Other things we learn simply for the sake of coping with some temporary circumstance. By the time these circumstances have passed, the beliefs and habits that helped us navigate them are so embedded in our mental and emotional circuitry, we mistake them as being part of our identity. Some of us become so accommodating to the demands of others, we accept it as part of our natural personality. Others of us become so guarded and cynical that we assume it's just who we are and that we can't change. Some of us become so used to doing everything ourselves, we convince ourselves that we can't trust or depend on anyone else. Others of us become so used to neglecting or denying our emotional needs, we convince ourselves that we don't even have those needs. Some of us become so used to being taken care of, we expect other people to be responsible for things that we should be responsible for. Others of us become so used to taking care of others, we come to believe that it's selfish to take time for our own self-care. These are just a few examples of beliefs that can become so dominant in our brain and nervous system, they distort our perception of ourselves and of the world. While these beliefs may have once been useful or even necessary, a time can also come when they have outlived their usefulness. What happens when we live by beliefs and habits that only served our former life? Those beliefs and habits keep us stuck repeating the same old mistakes, the same old patterns of self-sabotage. They keep us choosing or clinging to the same old toxic relationships. In most cases, this happens without us even realizing it. Once you understand this, you can shed those old beliefs and habits for new ones, but this starts with accepting that there's nothing wrong with you. All your suffering is the result of believing that there is, not some of your suffering, all of it. All the parts of you that appear broken are simply remnants of a life you no longer live in, but your brain is still programmed to cope with. But once you realize that you were born whole, you can intentionally grow into your best and most authentic self. Then you'll be free from the futile struggle to fix yourself, and you'll become a grateful traveler on the journey of authentic spiritual growth. New header: Peace is the new prosperity. This book is about finding inner peace. I could have made it about finding love, prosperity, health, purpose, or happiness. I've helped people find all these during my multi-decade coaching career. I've ghostwritten hundreds of business and personal growth books teaching people about these things. I chose inner peace because it's the foundation of them all. A mind at peace can experience and achieve all the good things of which it is capable. A mind not at peace is an inescapable prison of distraction, worry, overthinking, anxiety, fear, and self-doubt. Your heart knows both of these statements to be self-evident. When your mind is at peace, discipline takes less effort. Creativity comes naturally. You have more energy to focus in the face of distractions. When your mind is at peace, confidence becomes your natural state of thinking and being. You have more mental and emotional space for love, patience, and empathy. The authentic voice of your inner vision becomes the clearest and most profound influence in your life. A peaceful mind can more easily resist temptation, recognize opportunities, and act with wisdom, patience, and foresight. When your mind is at peace, you can clearly hear and trust those rare flashes of intuition and insight, often regarded as genius. Inner peace is the greatest and most empowering gift you'll ever give yourself. No one else can give it to you. No amount of money or external success can replace it. Even the things that would otherwise make you happy become harder to experience and enjoy when your mind is not at peace. New subheader: No peace, no prosperity. Given enough time and exposure, even the most resilient person will burn out on the relationship, job, career, personal project, or business that robs them of their peace of mind. I still remember my first shocking encounter with this truth. I was 29 and just over 2 years into my business coaching career. My newest client, who we'll call Ross, was an entrepreneurial powerhouse, Ivy League graduate, Ironman triathlon champion, founder and CEO of an 8-figure business. I was intimidated. Then, 20 minutes into our first call, after hearing him unpack his impressive list of 1% level achievements, I asked one question. Ross, who are you competing with? Long silence. Sobs. Myself. Open bawling. Ross dropped his overachiever facade and got real. The session became authentic and productive. It turned out that Ross had everything except inner peace. All his achievements were mere attempts to silence his internal noise of distraction, worry, overthinking, anxiety, fear, and self-doubt. In the weeks that followed, he discovered why all his attempts to silence the noise had only put inner peace further out of reach. I guided him on a journey similar to the one you'll be taking in this book, and everything started to change. In the decades since then, I've learned 2 things about inner peace. 1. It's what 99% of people are really looking for when they're chasing other goals. They just don't realize it. 2. Almost all our goals are attempts to free ourselves from the noise of our busy minds. Distraction, worry, anxiety, fear, and self-doubt. This is why I've made inner peace the ultimate goal of this book. The insights and methods in this book have dozens of other benefits. Those who practice and embody them will find more love, prosperity, health, purpose, healing, and happiness. But these are mere side effects of finding inner peace. Inner peace is the foundation of all meaningful success. Seek it first, and all other things will be added to you. New header, the signal in the noise. There's a voice and a vision inside you. The voice is the voice of your authentic self. The vision is the vision of your authentic life. Together, they make up the signal that guides you to a life of inner peace and external prosperity. When your inner signal is strong, your mind becomes calm. When your signal is weak, your mind becomes filled with noise. This is the most notable difference between a fulfilling life and a life of quiet desperation. It's also the most valuable difference between this book and every other personal or spiritual growth book on the market. New subheader, The Lies of Logic. Other books focus on finding inner peace by quieting the noise. This book focuses on finding inner peace by strengthening your signal. This distinction is important for 2 reasons. Firstly, inner noise is almost never about what your rational mind tells you it's about. This is one of the most liberating and empowering truths you'll learn from studying my work. Read it again. Distraction, worry, overthinking, anxiety, fear, and self-doubt are almost never about what your rational mind tells you they're about. Obsessive thoughts about money, career, marriage, health, your social life, etc., whether negative or positive, are merely stories that your left brain comes up with to make sense of the general feelings happening in your body. These stories don't have to be true, they just have to make enough sense of your experience to satisfy your rational mind. This is how we develop beliefs that are false and even self-sabotaging, which we defend using long and cleverly articulated arguments that may sound true, but are not. Once you get this, you'll be instantly set free from the silly merry-go-round of rubber chicken personal growth shortcuts. I'll never forget the day I discovered this truth and how swiftly, dramatically, and permanently my life has changed since then. My coaching client, whom we'll call Dan, was battling what appeared to be chronic procrastination. For 2 sessions in a row, he showed up buried in a project that he was scrambling to finish by the deadline. Being a rookie coach, this was in my first 2 years, I burped up the usual hacks about to-do lists, positive affirmations for overcoming perfectionism, and even dug into his relationship with his father, who had installed the perfectionism in Dan's psyche. Not only did Dan's procrastination persist, it was now accompanied by nagging worries about losing his client, and even paranoid thoughts about his live-in girlfriend cheating on him. None of the usual personal growth tropes made sense of this, so I turned to my intuition and my deeper knowledge of human nature. Bottom line, I found out that Dan was simply bored and understimulated. He had a hobby of racing cars on the weekend, but he hadn't indulged in weeks. His car racing met his basic need for excitement and gave his nervous system the rush of adrenaline he'd been getting by pushing himself to finish projects last minute. I had Dan take 4 hours off the next Sunday to go racing. His procrastination disappeared, and so did his paranoid thoughts. What happened? Dan stopped listening to the stories his left brain was telling him, and he addressed the root of the problem, his need for excitement and adventure. New header: the root of all self-sabotage. Since this revelation, I've discovered that most of the distraction, worry, overthinking, anxiety, fear, and self-doubt darting through our heads has nothing at all to do with the story our left brain is telling us. Once you accept this, you can stop chasing the diversion of conscious thought impulses and the futile battle to change your thinking or heal yourself, with long, deep dives into discussing and analyzing your past trauma. All forms of self-sabotage are energy blocks, and we can best address them by giving this trapped energy a release, just as Dan did. The other option is to follow the endlessly distracting and often inaccurate stories spun by our rational mind. Our logical brain is more deceptive than what we typically call our emotional brain. This is a verifiable fact, proven by well-documented scientific experiments. Logic and language are processed by the left side of your brain. Your right brain is purely experiential. It can't tell stories the way your left brain, that is, the rational mind, does. It just experiences things as they are. This makes it much more honest and dependable than your rational mind. I hope you got that. If not, read it again. Your right brain, i.e., irrational mind, can't tell stories the way your left brain does. It just experiences things as they are. This makes it much more honest and dependable than your rational mind. This shatters one of the biggest lies that keeps us enslaved by the brutal machinery of the real world, which I call the Matrix. All our lives we're told that we need to think rationally and not let our emotions rule us. While this advice is definitely useful, it also reinforces an objectively false paradigm about the human brain and nervous system. Michael Gazzaniga, a leading neuroscientist and author of Tales from Both Sides of the Brain, provides groundbreaking insights into how the left and right hemispheres of the brain function. His famous experiments with split-brain patients, individuals who had their corpus callosum severed to treat epilepsy, demonstrate how the brain's hemispheres operate differently. For instance, Gazzaniga showed a split-brain patient the word laugh in their left visual field, processed by the right brain. The patient then laughed but could not articulate why, because the right brain cannot use language to explain its actions. When asked why they laughed, the patient's left brain, unaware of the word laugh, created a rational-sounding explanation saying, "Oh, you're just being funny." In another experiment, Gazzaniga displayed an image of a snowy scene to the right hemisphere and a picture of a chicken claw to the left hemisphere. The patient was asked to select related images. The right hand, controlled by the left brain, pointed to a picture of a chicken, while the left hand, controlled by the right brain, pointed to a shovel. When asked to explain the choices, the left brain constructed a logical narrative, claiming the shovel was for cleaning the chicken coop, despite the right brain's selection being influenced by the snowy scene. These experiments highlight how the left brain fabricates stories to rationalize decisions and actions initiated by the right brain. The right brain, however, experiences reality more directly, free from the interpretative lens of language and logic. This evidence challenges the overly rationalistic paradigm we've been conditioned to accept, opening the door to a new way of thinking about our mind and how to master it. New subheader: The True Path to Peace. If you want to permanently silence the inner noise of distraction, worry, overthinking, anxiety, fear, and self-doubt, the first step is to recognize that nearly all of it is just a story your left brain is telling you. This is why personal growth advice based on changing your thinking is 99% ineffective and even potentially damaging to your self-confidence. You can't eliminate money worries by making more money, just as you can't fix a broken leg by learning to run faster. You can't rid your mind of fears that your partner will betray you, just as you can't fix a car's engine by learning to drive better. You can't stop overthinking a business plan by mindful meditation any more than you can stop the rain by putting up an umbrella. Finding inner peace starts with acknowledging that most of the noise robbing you of clarity, confidence, and calm is just the rationalizations of your left brain trying to make sense of something it can never fully understand. This leads to the second and most important point. Once you strengthen your signal, 90% of your internal noise will disappear on its own. The remaining 10% will seem insignificant compared to the clarity and depth of your authentic voice and vision. This is the only path to lasting inner peace. Everything else is an endless struggle to bring the ramblings of your left brain into submission. This is why most people fail at meditation. They focus on quieting the mind instead of clarifying and strengthening their inner voice and vision. Once you make this distinction, you'll understand a fundamental truth. You were born whole. All the potential for living as your best and most authentic self is embedded in your physical and spiritual DNA from the beginning. What you call your brokenness is simply the baggage you pick up as you go through life. Our brain is a learning machine. Some of what we learn is useful and benefits us throughout our lives. Other things we learn simply to navigate temporary circumstances. But when these circumstances pass, the beliefs and habits we adopted to navigate them often become embedded in our mental and emotional circuitry. Our left brain creates stories that reinforce these beliefs and habits by weaving them into our identity. Everything changes the moment you realize these stories have nothing to do with who you truly are. When you stop believing the scattered, fear-driven monkey chatter of your left brain, you'll discover inner peace, not by quieting the noise, but by strengthening your inner voice and vision.
End of the introduction to Awaken Your Shadow by Seth Czerepak.